The very thing that made you feel broken your entire life was never a flaw at all, but the clearest proof that you were selected for something most people will never be trusted with. Not rejected, chosen. There's a pattern I've noticed, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The people who were selected for the most significant assignments in history rarely looked the part when their story began. They weren't the most confident. They weren't the most polished. They weren't the ones the crowd would have voted for. They were the quiet ones, the ones who felt too much, the ones who thought too deeply and never quite fit the shape of the world around them. The ones who spent years wondering if something was fundamentally wrong with them, because the life everyone else seemed to live with ease felt foreign, almost like they were wearing someone else's shoes. You might know that feeling. That low, persistent hum of something about me is different, not better, not worse, just different. Like you were calibrated to a frequency nobody around you could receive. Here's what I need you to hear today. That wasn't a malfunction. That was a signal. I'm George, and this channel exists specifically for people who've been carrying that signal, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades, without anyone ever helping them understand what it means. If that's you, stay with me. What we're going to walk through today isn't motivational noise. It's a mirror, and what you see in it might finally give language to something you've felt your whole life but could never quite name. And if this channel has ever given you something real, something that met you exactly where you were, consider subscribing and passing this video to someone who needs it. It costs you nothing, and it could change everything for someone in the middle of a season they can't explain. Now let's get into it. Let me ask you something direct. Have you ever sat in a room full of people? People laughing, talking, seemingly at ease, and felt completely, quietly alone. Not dramatic loneliness, not a breakdown, just this subtle but persistent sense of separation. Like everyone else was given instructions on how to live, and you somehow weren't in the room when they were handed out. Most people treat that feeling as a problem to solve. Take a class, find a therapist, get more social. And look, mental health matters, community matters, and none of that is wrong. But there's a layer underneath that experience that almost nobody examines. Throughout recorded history, the people who carried the most consequential missions, the ones whose lives bent the arc of something larger than themselves, were almost never the comfortable ones. They were the ones who'd been through something, the ones who couldn't fit in no matter how hard they tried, because comfort doesn't produce depth. Pressure does. Think about it this way. A diamond and a lump of coal are chemically identical. Same carbon atoms, same basic structure. The only difference between them is what one of them was subjected to sustained, intense pressure over time. The pressure didn't destroy the carbon. It transformed it into something that catches the light. There's something in you that kept not breaking even when everything around you said it should. That stubbornness, that refusal to completely collapse even in your worst seasons, isn't a personality quirk. It has a name, and the name is calling. Not everyone experiences life this way. Not everyone feels the weight of it this deeply, or carries that persistent sense of being set apart for something they can't fully articulate. But the ones who do, they're not cursed, they're marked. And the marking feels heavy, because what it's marking you for isn't small. Here's something I want you to sit with for a moment. You've had seasons, probably more than a few, where you were carrying something so heavy inside that you couldn't explain it to anyone around you. You smiled in the right places. You answered, "I'm doing okay," when someone asked. You kept showing up because you had to, because stopping wasn't an option. And then, in the quiet in your car on the drive home, in your room after everyone else was asleep, in those 2 a.m. hours, when the house was silent and the weight finally had nowhere to hide you, let it out. Maybe you cried. Maybe you couldn't even cry, and just lay there staring at the ceiling with that pressure in your chest that had no name. Maybe you whispered something to God that wasn't even a real sentence, just a broken sound that meant, "I don't know how much more of this I have in me." Nobody saw that, or so you believed. The story of Hannah in the Bible hits differently every time I come back to it. And the older I get, the more I understand why. Hannah was a woman who wanted something so desperately that her grief became physical. She was in the temple, weeping and praying with such raw intensity that Eli the priest walked over and accused her of being drunk. She wasn't performing grief. She wasn't looking for attention. She was just broken and honest before God, so broken she couldn't even get coherent words out. Only her lips were moving. And the text says God heard her. Not her words, because she didn't have words. He heard the thing behind the words. The wordless ache. The honest desperation. The prayer that was too deep for language. Your unspoken moments have been heard the same way. Every night you couldn't explain to anyone. Every prayer that felt like it dissolved into the ceiling without landing anywhere. Every moment you chose to keep going when stopping would have been so much easier. That's not a private archive of suffering. That's a record of faithfulness. And records like that don't get filed away and forgotten. They get answered. I have to be honest with you here, because I think this is one of the most disorienting parts of the spiritual journey, and not enough people address it plainly. There are seasons where you pray and hear absolutely nothing back. You seek and find nothing. You wait and nothing moves. The silence isn't just uncomfortable, it's destabilizing. Because you've been told God is present, God is close, God hears, and yet the silence is so thick you could almost touch it. And in that silence, the question rises. Did he forget about me? I want to answer that question directly, because you deserve a direct answer. No, he didn't forget you. But I also want to give you something more useful than just that reassurance. Because reassurance without understanding doesn't hold up under pressure. Here's what I've come to understand about divine silence. Silence is not the same as absence. Silence is often the loudest form of work. In architecture, there's a concept called negative space, the intentional emptiness around and between objects. And what architects understand is that negative space isn't nothing. It's structure. It's what gives the visible elements their shape, their definition, their meaning. Remove the negative space, and the whole design collapses. The silences in your story have been negative space. They weren't gaps. They were structure. They were forming the shape of what's coming. Think about what happens underground before a tree breaks through the surface. To anyone walking by, the ground just looks like ground. Nothing is visible. Nothing seems to be happening. But beneath the surface, a root system is expanding, reaching outward, driving deeper, establishing itself, because the moment that tree breaks through, it's going to face wind, heat, drought, weight. And it's going to need roots that go deep enough to hold. You've been growing roots, the seasons that felt like stagnation, the doors that closed without explanation, the waiting that stretched far past what seemed reasonable or fair that wasn't forgetfulness. That was engineering. God was building something underneath that the eye couldn't see yet. And here's the part that should give you something to hold on to. The depth of the preparation tells you something about the size of the promise. You don't take someone through years of desert preparation for a small, inconsequential assignment. The intensity of the process is proportional to the weight of what's coming. If your process has been deep, and I believe it has, then what's coming is significant. And this is exactly what I want to stay on for a moment. Because this idea that God deposits something specific inside you before you even arrive, and that the entire journey is the process of uncovering what that is. This is something I've thought about deeply. And thinking about it, I created the secret protocol. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you has been recognizing itself while watching this, don't dismiss that. That's not coincidence. That's the spirit confirming what was already written about you. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that reveal what heaven deposited in you before you arrived. Things that the people around you have never been able to name. Things you've sensed but never had language for. It comes with a complete audiobook, built specifically for moments of prayer, silence, and solitude with God. Exactly the kind of moments we've been talking about in this video. And you also receive the Awakening Map, a guide that identifies the 5 stages of spiritual awakening with precision, so you can see exactly where you are right now and what the next phase looks like. The link is pinned in the first comment, but it's only available for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without responding to what you're feeling right now. Let me reframe something that may have felt like the most painful chapter of your story. The long, dry, directionless seasons you walked through, the ones where you felt invisible, unproductive, forgotten. They weren't punishment. They were a curriculum. And not just any curriculum. It was the kind that can't be taught any other way. The desert has a specific function in the lives of chosen people. It strips away every external support system and leaves you alone with what's actually inside you. No audience, no applause, no title, no recognition. No one telling you that you're on the right track. Just you and what you're made of, which is exactly the point. Because you can't discover what's inside you while the noise of external approval is covering it up. Moses is the most striking example of this in all of Scripture. He grew up inside Pharaoh's palace, educated by the best minds in Egypt, clothed in the finest linen, connected to the most powerful political structure on earth. By every external measure, he should have been ready for his mission. God looked at all of that and said, "Not yet." And Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep. 40 years. Anonymous. Unknown. Seemingly irrelevant. Here's what that story reveals. Moses didn't leave the desert knowing more facts about leadership. He left knowing himself. He left having learned dependence, the kind that isn't performative, the kind that comes from having no other option. He left having learned that the voice of God sounds completely different from the voice of ambition, and that you can only learn to tell the difference when ambition has been quieted long enough. You can't teach that in a palace. You can only learn it in the wilderness. David's story runs the same pattern. He was anointed king as a young man, chosen, identified, marked for a throne. And then he spent years hiding in caves, running from Saul, writing in the dark. And those writings, the Psalms, have been prayed by grieving people across 3,000 years. His suffering became someone else's language for God. His desert produced something that outlasted his entire kingdom. What if your desert is doing the same thing? Not just forming you, but forming something through you that will outlast you. What if the very specific pain you've carried is producing language that someone else desperately needs? This next part I want you to think about carefully. Have you noticed that the resistance in your life has felt disproportionate? Like the obstacles weren't just difficult but targeted. The setbacks weren't random but specific. The attacks on your identity, your hope, your sense of purpose, they felt too consistent, too pointed to be coincidence. That's not paranoia. That's spiritual discernment. Here's the logic. Opposition is proportional to threat. A farmer doesn't build fences around empty fields. He builds them around what has value. If you carry nothing of significance, there's nothing to attempt to stop. The fact that so much has tried to stop you, the repeated blows to your sense of self, the specific attacks on the things you were most called to, is actually a backhanded confirmation of what's inside you. The enemy doesn't waste resources on empty assignments. And the wounds you carry, the ones you sometimes wonder disqualified you, the ones that left you feeling exposed and diminished, they didn't disqualify you. They equipped you. Because you cannot speak with genuine authority about territory you've never walked through. You can quote statistics about pain. You can read books about loss. But you cannot speak with the kind of understanding that actually reaches people in the middle of it, unless you've been in the middle of it yourself. You've been in the middle of it. Which means when you speak, when your story starts to come out, people will know it's real. They'll feel it. And that realness is the very thing that will set them free. Every fall you experienced that didn't finish, you planted something. Every time you chose to get back up when staying down would have been understandable. That was a seed going into the ground. And seeds don't stay underground forever. I want to be precise here, because I think "you are chosen" can become empty words if it's not anchored to something honest. Being chosen is not a status. It's not a ranking. It's not God saying you're more valuable than someone else. What it means specifically, practically, is that you were entrusted with a weight that requires everything you have. your pain, your specific history, your sensitivity, your particular way of seeing the world. Your story in its full, unedited version, including the chapters you'd rather not show anyone. That's exactly why your path has looked different from the people around you. The people who seem to move forward easily, faster progress, smoother circumstances, fewer visible seasons of collapse. They were walking their path. But you were being walked through something different. A different kind of preparation. A slower, deeper, harder to see kind of formation, because what you're being prepared for requires roots that most people's journeys never develop. Your sensitivity isn't weakness disguised as feeling. Researchers at Stony Brook University have studied what they call high sensory processing sensitivity, present in approximately 15 to 20% of the population. And what they found is that these individuals process information at a neurological level that most people don't. They feel highs more intensely. They feel lows more intensely. They notice things others walk past without registering. Verifier citation specifics. What neuroscience describes as a trait, I believe, has a spiritual dimension. Some people are built to perceive more because they're meant to carry more and to give more. That's not a burden. That's architecture. You were built this way on purpose. Here's something I want to say to the part of you that's starting to wonder if you've waited too long. The part that looks at where you thought you'd be by now and feels the gap like a weight on your chest. God does not operate on the schedule you handed him. And that's not indifference, that's precision. The fig tree in Scripture doesn't produce fruit in winter. Not because it's broken, not because it failed, because there's a sequence built into its biology that can't be rushed without destroying the fruit before it forms. You push a fig tree to produce in the wrong season, and you get nothing. You let it move through its full cycle, and you get an abundance. You are in a cycle, and the cycle has not failed you. Joseph's story is the most extreme version of this in the Bible. He received a vision of his future at 17 years old, and then spent the next 13 years being sold by his brothers, falsely accused, imprisoned, forgotten by people he helped. 13 years between the promise and the fulfillment. And when the fulfillment came, when he stood before Pharaoh and was elevated to the second most powerful position in Egypt, every single thing he had been through was the precise preparation required for the responsibility he said was about to carry. He needed to understand betrayal before he could lead with grace toward the people who had betrayed him. He needed to understand prison before he could govern with compassion for people society had discarded. He needed to understand that his survival was never in his own hands before he could be trusted with the survival of a nation. Nothing in those 13 years was filler. Every piece was load-bearing. Your delayed seasons are load-bearing too. There's a book with your name on it, and in that book is every detail that no human audience ever acknowledged. Every decision you made in private that cost you something. Every time you told the truth when lying would have been easier. Every act of kindness that no one witnessed, no one thanked you for, no one even knew happened. Every moment you held onto your integrity when releasing it would have given you immediate relief. All of it is documented. Not symbolically, spiritually, and permanently documented. The world keeps records based on what's visible. Titles, achievements, metrics, applause. God keeps records based on what's real. The hidden obedience, the quiet endurance, the faithfulness that never got a stage. And the one who keeps those records brings justice with a completeness that no human accounting can match. You were not overlooked. You were watched with attention that didn't miss a single thing. And every sacrifice you made in obscurity, every prayer you whispered into an empty room, every morning you chose to get up and try again, when the previous day had broken you, has been held with honor by a God who sees what men ignore. The debt is not forgotten. The harvest is coming. Something is shifting right now. I want you to feel that, not just hear it. The seasons of your life are not random, and they don't run forever. There's a pattern in nature that mirrors spiritual reality. The most severe winters produce the most explosive springs, not in spite of the cold, but because of it. The cold breaks the outer shell of the seed. That breaking is not destruction. It's the mechanism of release. Without the breaking, the seed never opens. Without the opening, nothing grows. You have been through a long winter, but winter has a built-in expiration. And so does your waiting. The tears you released in your hardest seasons are coming back as harvest. The prayers that felt like they went nowhere are returning as answers that are going to make your jaw drop, because the answer is going to exceed the prayer. The obedience you held on to, even when it cost you, even when you were called foolish for it, even when no one around you could understand why you wouldn't just compromise, that is bearing weight right now, in a dimension you can't fully see yet. But you will see it. The story of Elijah after Mount Carmel tells us something important about what happens to chosen people, even after significant victories. He'd just witnessed fire fall from heaven. He'd just seen one of the most dramatic divine interventions in the entire Old Testament. And then Jezebel sent one threat, one message, and he ran into the wilderness, sat under a tree, and asked God to take his life. He was exhausted, depleted, done. And what did God do? He let him sleep. He sent an angel to bring him food, twice, and then said, "Get up, because the journey is too long for you to make it without strength." That's the God you've been dealing with your entire life. Not a God who demands more from you when you're empty. A God who says, eat, rest, because what's ahead requires you to be present for it, and you are going to be there for it. Get up. The journey ahead is too significant for you to miss. Say this out loud if you can, and mean every word. I was not forgotten. I was being formed. Every season of silence was a season of construction. Every tear I released in private was being collected. Every prayer I whispered without an audience was being heard. I am not behind. I am not disqualified. I am not too broken, too late, or too far gone. I am exactly where I need to be for what God is preparing to do. The roots are deep. The winter is ending. What was planted in me in the dark is coming into the light. The blooming has begun. If this landed somewhere real in you today, don't let it sit there untouched. Let it move. Leave something in the comments. It doesn't have to be long or polished. It could be a single word, a sentence, or just, "I receive this." You have no idea how your response might land on someone else reading the comments in the middle of their own silent season. Someone who needed to see that they're not alone. And if you're not subscribed yet, do that now. Not for the numbers, but because you're in a season that requires consistent, grounded words. And this channel exists to provide exactly that. You walked a road that most people will never understand. You endured things you couldn't explain to anyone, survived seasons that had no visible end, and held on to something inside you, even when you couldn't name what you were holding on to. That's not ordinary. That's chosen. Your story isn't finished. It's not even close to finished. And the chapters that are coming, the ones that haven't been written yet, they are going to make everything you endured make complete and undeniable sense. Keep going. You are closer than you think.